I've never heard that. And
with
that's
the
why
int-
I was, you know, guys, this is why training calls are so important is some of you guys have trouble asking for banking information. Well, I've never heard anybody doing training calls in 8 years say it that way. Yeah, I appreciate you guys for hopping on. Excited to be able to have Drake Geramoni with us. I've had a chance to know Drake a little bit over the past year, and I was reaching out to Grady, and I said, "Hey, I need someone that's a killer sales guy who is very polished and works his ass off." He goes, "Drake," and I'm like, "Done." So I reached out to Drake because I wanted to have his insight. Drake, what I found out is you're a banker, or you used to be a banker, I should say, and transition into the insurance sales. So I can't wait to hear that story because, so many times people go, why you know, would a financial professional do what we're doing? And my answer is like, hell yes. And so, I'm curious to hear your side of that. But, Drake, I appreciate you taking time out your day to spend some time with us. The
Happy to.
floor is yours. For those that don't know you, can you kind of share your background, how you fell into this and all that good stuff?
Sure. Well, first of all, Stephen, you've been a huge influence since I got here, so I'm humbly very happy to be here with you guys
Thank you.
and your team. Grady speaks so highly of you and your team, and you've been very kind to me at every event I've seen you at. So if I can add value to some of your folks in a way, they can follow the method to my madness. I'm happy to share it. Um, so I've been in banking since 2004, Wells Fargo. I was a corporate manager for big mega branches. And then during the 2008 bust, I got recruited to JP Morgan private bank, and I helped them get rid of the WAMU people in San Francisco, California. And then I went into commercial and business banking and got recruited by US Bank, where I could be close to home, was remote and just dealing with executives and high net worth individuals. And what I realized is Grady had been doing this like 7 years at that point. July next year will be 2 years for me. And I've been on his drip campaigns this whole time. And I'm like, what am I doing?
No
So,
way.
yeah, tragically enough, I got hurt several years ago falling on an elephant in the Himalayas. And I got hurt again in an Uber for work on the way to the airport, and it tweaked my neck and my back pretty bad. So I was going to be out of work for 3 months. They were paying for everything, but I was bored because I'm a talker and I'm an activity kind of person. And I said, Grady, give me all the stuff. And, I studied for a week and passed the test the first time. And then I watched you be interviewed. I watched Grady, I watched Carrie Glass. I watched um, Josh Lockhart, Sean Simpson. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And I fell in love with it because I was going through the workers' comp and the legal stuff with the bank. So I couldn't start for about 2 months. Um, so I watched every YouTube video Grady has, and there's a lot. And I just said, how am I going to do this, but do it a little different and add some of my banking flair to it? Because it's really the same thing. The only thing different I think maybe I do is I've been talking a long time in customer service, but I can uncover the money. And that's really important when you're transitioning to IULs and understanding if you need to go simplified issue or you're going to do, NLG or F&G complex IUL.
Right.
So I fell in love with it. The first cruise was like in 65 days, and I just came out guns a-blazing and couldn't let my little brother-in-law down. And I did 116 in 65 days, got on the cruise, and then just met more influential people, and it just kind of changed my life. I never really went back. Um, it's not easy. People always think, oh, it's the lead, you know, what system do you use? How do you triple dial? I'm like, yes. It's not the lead, it's the consistency. So in the beginning, I was hand dialing from an iPhone, was buying clever closers. I got turned on to them very early in their beta stage. Those are mortgage protection leads. And to me, a mortgage protection lead is a perfect IUL lead.
Absolutely.
So I was just literally, spending $4,000 a week on, high intent leads that come in real time. And I'd call them from my personal iPhone and just had a stack of paper, and I would just put tallies next to AM, PM, noon, and I would just go through by state because I'm in California. So I start at 4 in the morning and I just go till I get a sale. And that's where the next part comes in, is kind of the non-negotiables. And I heard that very early. I can't remember who it was, Brandon Kitchens, or it might have been you too. I think all of you kind of say it in your own ways. But the non-negotiables for me and my team of two, that's me and Francesca, are pretty much, you can have a bad day, but you got to do the activities. So I don't call it a bad day. If I'm on the phone 4 hours, I set, 4 or 5 new appointments, had decent quality conversation. I had, 10 people no show. They go into a second no show bucket. I'm going to be right on top of them. Um, and then I had some presentations and I closed a sale. So you want to make sure you hit one of those regardless. So with the 10 hours a day that I'm calling, you'd have to be either lazy or get distracted really easy, or just not believe in yourself for what your long game is. My long game, I told Sean, he's like, "Oh, you're going to hit Hall of Fame." I said, "No, I'm going to hit Hall of Fame every quarter next year because
Mm.
that's not that volume that I'm trying to get to have a nice sustainable business model." Um, and we're going to do it next year. The transition's really unique. I know that's what you want to know about. When I got here, everybody was doing mortgage protection only, and final expense, and I never did final expense. It just wasn't my jam. Maybe because I was raised by my grandparents, so I didn't like it. Um, it wasn't for me. So I decided to do mortgage protection, and it just came to me very clearly that as long as you identify they qualify, you could make your expert recommendation. Um, Transitioning to IUL, it was hard. So I spent a month doing illustrations with F&G, literally, because I asked Josh, well, "Hey, how long does it take you to that illustration?" He's all about 2 to 3 minutes. And it was taking me like a half an hour. I said, "Oh,
Oh,
this
wow.
isn't going to work."
Right.
So I called F&G, great people, learned everything I needed to do, and then I did literally 100 mock appointments, that I made up. And I just did illustrations till I was blue in the face. And now I could, write one in 2 minutes. And then I did the exact same thing with NLG, so that I had the two best carriers that have the most functionalities, great customer service, and then customer facing with NLG having the app. And really just memorized everything, all the tricks. And then the third part is how to talk to somebody. So for me, it's real simple. I do the same thing every time from every one of the interviews I've done. I pre-flight clients within the first 2 minutes. And if they give any pushback, I give them my credentials and I explain to them how much I would have to lose if you thought I was going to do something with your account number or your social. And then I just kind of go through the application. Um, Ultimately, it turned out to be very, very simple, kind of like Brandon Kitchen's one call close. I still do mostly one call closes, even with IULs. Um, Ultimately, having them trust you and you identifying what's important to them and then making a recommendation. But right out the gate, I'm like, hey, there's two types of IULs, typically protection focused and, a growth focused. My job as a non-captive agent is to work for you. I come with the policy. So what that means is I don't work for them. I have access to them, the 25 A-rated billion-dollar companies, for you. I work for you. I choose to work for you to help you get qualified today. Does that make sense? Yeah. Great. Is your driver's license active? Yeah. Great. Do you use Chime or Cash App, or do you use a big five bank or a credit union? Oh, Navy Federal. Great. Have you had any trips to the ER or overnighters in the last 5 years? Medical diagnosis or conditions that you had to have surgeries for? Oh, well, yeah, 3 years ago. Okay, great. Write it down. Um, and then I go right into the prescription history immediately. So what prescriptions have you been prescribed in the last 12 months? Do you still take them? Tell me a little bit about that. What's that look like? And they're like, well, no. Oh, you're the only guy in America then. And then they go, well, okay, high blood pressure. I am diabetic, but I just do metformin. Okay, great. This makes it so that I can recommend the best possible carrier to make it so we do less HIPAA and acknowledgement forms. Is that fair?
Mm.
Yeah, okay, great. So now that I have an idea that they're pre-flighted, then I want to uncover the money, right? So then I'm like, oh, you own your own home. And they're like, yeah. Oh, great. What's your mortgage cost? I'm like 2,000 a month. So I have an idea of knowing they can afford that. They can probably understand. They can afford an IUL that's $500 or more a month, but I got to figure out what their goals are. So then I just kind of teeter right into, when you were looking at this, what was the absolute minimum with your current lifestyle and your budget that you would be able to afford to put into a policy like this that I'm going to construct and build for you? Oh, well, I really just don't know. And they start talking about, well, how much do I get back? When can I borrow against it? I make it real simple. I go, so there's pretty much two ways to do it. If your goal and your interest was viral, that you heard be your own bank, infinite banking concepts, borrowing tax free, we typically have those clients fund annually so that they can borrow immediately. And they typically have cash accumulation, day one, that's going to accumulate day one. Now, if that's your primary goal, that's how we would build it. What kind of budget would you have to do this annually? And then they're like, oh, well, maybe $12,000 a month. Great. So that gives me an idea of how to build it. If they're like, well, we're on a tight budget, it's going to be about 500 max, and the guy's 50 years old, so he's right in the pocket with the 10 times your age. So that works. So we like that. Anything lower than that, I'm pretty much going to put it through Americo or Moo. So if they can't afford 10 times their age, that's a red flag that I'm not putting them in NLG or Fidelity and Guarantee.
That's a nugget right there.
My volume. So at that point, I uncover the money, and then the more they trust you. So we'll rewind. Let's say that they passed all those questions. They didn't say no to ID. They didn't say they only have Chime. Let's just say it's an easy customer, right? But then the next part is you figure out their budget. Well, immediately within 5 minutes, I'm already going to be like, well, what we need to go forward and actually put in this request, because these requests, you can't just buy this. This is going to take potentially, it could be a week, and it could be up to 6 weeks, depending on what the medical information kicks back about you. Oh, it's unethical for you to look at my medical to judge me. Really? So if you were a business and I wanted $500,000 from you, would you give it to me for $500 a month without looking at my medical records? No. Okay. So that's why they do it. The insurance carriers want to make sure the character of the guarantor, the asset, that's you, is healthy, right? So they have to check. Depending on the size of the policy and the amount of money you're going to put in is also going to determine whether or not it goes to underwriting. But I immediately go with, what we need to do to get this done today is I have your email, I have your phone number. What's your address? I do the soft things first. Right. Oh, here it is. Perfect. Great. And what's your ID? You need it for some you don't need it, but I ask it because they have it memorized, and it's a soft question. And then I go, great. And for the Medical Information Bureau, what's your SOCH? And then sometimes you'll get pushback on that. Sometimes you don't. I don't get a lot of pushback anymore. I used to, and I'll tell you what I did to alter that. But they gave me their SOCH, and I go, I'm typing that. If you could repeat it one more time. This isn't something I put in my database because it's more sensitive. I'm typing it directly into the carrier. So in a second, I'm not going to be able to see it. So if you wonder why I keep asking you for it, it's because there's no reason for me to write it down anywhere. Does that make sense? Makes them feel better. And then I go, in order for me to actually see what your table rating cost of insurance is so that I can construct this IUL for you. Because remember, what we decided to go with was minimum death benefit, maximum accumulation. So I have to find out what the minimum death benefit is going to cost based off your age, your health, your driving record, your prescription history. So in order for them to pull that information, the insurance carrier is going to pay over $1,000 to pull those records on you. We have to show that your intent is to purchase a policy if you can get approved. You mentioned before you're a Chase Bank. Is that right? Yes.
Hmm.
Great. And you opened that account in Boston? Yes. Great. I see the Boston routing number is ABC123. Is that what you remember? Oh, yeah, yeah, I think so. Great. What's your account number? And if they give any pushback on that, oh, I had fraud, I can't give it. You know what? I completely understand. I'm so sorry. Fraud is such a horrible thing to go through. Ultimately, I deal with this every day. I sent you a link. Go ahead, pull that up really quick. You see those 50 states on there? My home address, my home phone number that I've had since 95 is there. And all the departments of insurance, they're all state and federally regulated across the whole United States, has me in good status on each one of them. So I get my fingerprints done 75 times a year because of all the carriers I have to shop for you to make a recommendation and the states to help more people in the country. Does that make sense? And they go, yeah. And I go, so I would be breaking a lot of laws and it's a felony if I was to do something with your social security number or your account number. So I use that rebuttal on anything they give flack with. If they don't want to give social, same thing. I send them verified producer, or before the appointment, they've already got it, but I'll text it to them from my phone. Say, go ahead, click on that link, and just kind of let them know that I have a lot more to lose than them if I was to sacrifice my whole career over stealing your account number. And then from there, I'm just submitting. Um,
I want to press you on that if you allow me to, because
you can press whatever you want.
um, one of the things that I've heard a lot of people say, and that's I want to see how a professional like you deals with it. Well, Drake, why do I have to give you my bank account information if I'm not buying anything today?
Great question. So there's two really good reasons. So the first one, let me reiterate, uh, these billion-dollar insurance companies don't give out quotes all day for free. What they do is they validate who you are, they pull your medical records, they pull your driving records, and if you don't have a valid credit account or bank account on file, there's no intent that you're going to buy from us and go somewhere else, and then we'd be giving out $1,000, background checks all day long. So you have to have intent to purchase. But there's two other pieces to that that are really important. The other piece to that is we need to hit validate to make sure that it's not a business account. It's an account in your name, checking your savings. It's not your cousin in Alabama trying to open up an account on you because he thinks you're going to kick the bucket this year. You don't want that, right? No, no, we don't want that. And then last, we have to do our due diligence for anti-money laundering, and we need to authenticate that this account does belong to you. That usually nips it in the butt.
I was gonna say I would have gave you my bank account right now, but and see that's pretty good. You're the first person I've heard say with the intent to purchase. I've never heard that, and
With
that's
the
why I was, you know, guys. This is why training calls are so important. Is some of you guys have trouble asking for banking information. Well, I've never heard anybody doing training calls in 8 years say it that way. Because I'm like, that makes sense. Intent to purchase. Yeah. Like they got to run the background, they got to run the RX, they got to run the MIB and the motor vehicle report. That costs money. It definitely costs money. So they're not going to do it if you're not serious either.
Right. If they give pushback still, it's like, well, you do understand why it'd be unethical for me to provide you a quote off a system when we're all blood, water, oxygen, and we haven't pulled any of your health records, right? And they usually fold. Unless they weren't going to do it anyways because they're kind of an angry person. I can usually tell, but I don't get too much pushback from that one. Typically, okay, I'll get it. Let me log into the app or let me go get it out of the safe.